Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on another adventure. Today I'm in central Idaho. I'm actually here for my mother's 87th birthday party. We're going to eat some cake and do some motorcycle riding, but that's not what this video is about. No, on this video I'm going with my brother Dave, who discovered an old mine here a year or so ago, and I love exploring old mines. So he's going to take me up here. We're going to go on about a 2-hour motorcycle ride to the Red River Valley, where we're going to explore the Gold Point mine, or not the mine, but a bunch of the ruins there. Okay, here we are. We're showing up at the mine site now. It's on the other side of the Red River here. You can press pause if you'd like to read this, but I'm going to tell you everything it says and maybe even a little bit more. So this is the Red River Valley, and this is the Red River. We're just a little ways out of Elk City, Idaho. There were several mining booms here in this area starting in the 1860s, but the ruins we're going to go visit right ahead of us here were built in the kind of the mid 1930s. I think it was founded in 1934, and then the buildings were built in 1935. Now right ahead of us here you can see an old table saw. I think that all the lumber that they used to make the houses and buildings here were cut on this table saw. You can see it's a power feed. It was actually pretty modern for its time. A little bit rusty now. Nothing a little WD-40 won't fix. Well, let's go over here and check out the original building. This is called the Cookhouse. The original owner lived here, and so have all subsequent owners. You can see there's a sofa in there. It looks pretty cozy. When my brother Dave first found this like a year or so ago, he couldn't go inside because the place was just absolutely full of hornets. So we're going to very carefully look inside here, make sure there's not anything in here that we don't want to come in contact with. Then we'll go in and check it out. So as we're exploring here, I think I'll tell you a little bit more about the history of this place. The original owner was named Robert White. He was a logger from Seattle, and he was tired of logging and thought he could make more money as a miner. So he went around and invested a whole bunch of time and energy in trying to convince other Seattleites and Washingtonians to invest in his idea. One of the original investors was a man named Clarence Van Scotter. And he was a gas station owner in Seattle, and he sold his gas station and invested all the money from that and his savings into this mine, and moved over here with his wife Mary and their 6 children. Actually, the first year when they got here, they lived in a tent here beside this cabin. They even spent the winter in that tent. And you can see as we're walking around here, the place isn't in bad shape at all, considering it was built in 1934, 1935. It's obviously been remodeled a few times. You can see there's plywood and stuff. But actually these stairs and everything are pretty solid. And the walls are not bad shape either. Going upstairs here, got a few bedrooms up here. Got a bunk bed here. And all these bedrooms in here are kind of the same. A little room with a closet. Closet has some shelves in it. But again, you can see there's plywood on the ceiling. There's plywood on the walls. There's a nice chandelier here hanging from the ceiling. That looks pretty fancy. Would have been nice and warm probably in this room during the winter with the stovepipe passing through. You can see the only residents now apparently are a bunch of pack rats making their homes here. But again, I'm actually pretty shocked at how nice a condition this is. Nice view looking out the window there, probably a lot nicer than it was when they were working here. Have a bunch of electrical outlets and switches on the wall. We make our way back to the other gable end here to check out that room. Some closet doors here. So this is just another bedroom. Unfortunately, there's a hole in the ceiling. That'll be the demise of the building. A closet, some shelves. Look at that log there below the window. You can see it had a different type of window once, but it's been remodeled. They put in this slider, which still slides, missing its glass. But we'll head out downstairs here and see what's going on outside. I know Dave's out there already exploring the sheds. Still, I'm surprised at what good shape the stairs and everything are actually in. There's Dave. I like these porches that they have. It would have been nice to kick back in during the summer when the bugs are out, or during the winter when it was cold. Anyhow, back to the history of the place. Between the years 1935 and 1937, when they went broke, they had anywhere between 5 and 10 miners working for them, operating about 26 claims and 9 tunnels. One of the tunnels was almost 300 feet in length. If you look here, you can see there's actually 2 sheds. One of them has fallen down. The one that fell down, you can see there's a tree lying through it. That's what knocked it down. It was apparently some kind of storage shed. We couldn't find anything in it. But the other shed, it was full of sawdust. Make my way over here. I think this was about 15 or 20 years ago when this tree came down and knocked down this shed. The other shed here was filled full of sawdust, I imagine from that table saw and all the construction that they had to do to build all these things. And they used the sawdust in the boilers to run the steam engines that ran the mill. We'll go explore that here in just a bit. But you can see this building is absolutely just stuffed full of sawdust. Now those 5 to 10 employees that they had were actually, many of them were apple pickers from Yakima, and several of them worked for stock in the company rather than wages. And that turned out not to be a very good idea, because while Robert White was a great promoter and a big dreamer, he wasn't a very good miner. And the ore body here was actually only about 40 foot wide and about 4 feet below the ground and about 1 foot thick. So they ran out of material right away. But here you can see in front of us, there it is, the mill. It's a beautiful structure and amazingly well preserved too. And that's really what this mine is famous for, is the great preservation of this mill. It wasn't built properly and apparently broke after only 3 days use. And so all the equipment in it and the structure itself has very little wear and tear on it. You can see here there's a bucket elevator that ran off of these wheels, which had belts running to them, to other axles which had belts on them running out to the steam engine. One of the belts ran down here. You can see this wheel. It operated one of the 2 big shaker tables that were down here. It would shake back and forth as the material poured onto it, then it would run across that and classify. This is a Rake Classifier. It's actually in really good shape. Of course, like everything here, it hasn't really been used. But that rake at the bottom would slide back and forth and classify the material further. You can see a trough pouring into it. Here you see a trough. It came out of the crusher there. All the crushed up ore would come down, go through these little trays, and then work their way down through different troughs where they would come back up through that big bucket elevator and then come down through other troughs back to the Rake Classifier. And if you look in this trough, you can see the saw cuts. You can see the saw cuts so well because we really never had any material run through it. If there'd been used at all, this would show wear, but basically nothing in here was ever used. Again, it only worked for about 3 days before the mine quit due to a broken gear. Apparently they ordered a different gear to replace the broken one, but never installed it, and supposedly it's laying around out here somewhere, but we didn't find it. I'm going to go ahead and cross over the troughs here running out of the jaw crusher. There's supposed to be a ball mill here, but I never seen anything like that. I just seen this big jaw crusher. You can see here these gears that were spun off of this big wheel that run off another pulley up there, and this handle is the clutch to turn it off and on. But there was a belt running off of that steam engine out there that would come over and run all of the equipment in here. So what you see here is the big jaw crusher, and here would have been a bunch of jaws, and this would spin around as the ore was dumped in through the ore chute and crush it all up. Here's the big ore chute. They would fill that with the ore. They could lift the door. The ore would come through in about 6-inch or smaller sized rocks and get crushed up. Outside here we can see the boilers that made the steam, these big steam engines here. And you know, by the 1930s, steam was pretty much out of date. I'm not sure why they decided to use steam, possibly because Robert White, being a former logger, might have been used to using steam donkeys in the logging industry. But I really liked seeing them. There's two of them here. I think the first one, the horizontal one, wasn't ever used. I think it was this one right here. You can see it's got all of its parts connected. There's the piston and the drive rods there that ran that wheel that would have been connected to the belt that went inside the building and ran all of the machinery in there. You see, there would have been a roof here at one point, but that is long since gone. There's no sign of it. But I was really interested to see these old steam engines here. This, you can see the firebox would have been at this end. They built the fire there, and the smoke would have passed through and came out up at this end out of this chimney. I'll stick the camera down in here where you can see the tubes that the smoke passed through. There they are, and that would have heated all the water inside the boiler, which would have made the steam to run this mill. Now, I had read that the gold ore was in a metamorphic rock called gneiss. This metamorphic rock here is more of a lower grade metamorphic rock, mica schist, and so I'm not sure if that geology report I read was correct. Here's some ironworks laying around. It says Union Ironworks, Spokane, Washington. Most of the metal in here, if not all of it, came from the Union Ironworks in Spokane, Washington. My brother Dave here is explaining to me that this crusher here actually was a jaw crusher. We've seen the jaws laying over there. This would tumble, and the rocks going in, it would have been crushed into a powder and come out and run down the troughs to the shaker tables. I'm going to go down the stairs here and go check out those shaker tables. They're actually in really good shape too. You can see springs under there that when the table would shake, that would help contain the vibration. You can see how the water containing the slurry that contained the gold ore would have poured across these tables and into those troughs, and on the way crossed over this material here that has these rifles on it, and the gold would have been caught in those rifles. Dave's going to come down and here we're talking about what if this building were to suddenly collapse on top of us. Which I suppose could happen, but I wasn't that worried. You know, I've made a lot of pole buildings in my life, and in spite of all the bending and a few cracks and breaks here and there, the building actually overall looked in really good shape, was really pretty solid. Anyhow, after we survived that, we noticed there was a conveyor up through the woods here, so we thought we'd go up and check it out. It was actually in really good shape. Very amazing to see it sitting up here. I'm not sure how they used it with the mine, but it was powered by electric motors, and you can see the switches here for turning off and on all the various motors. And the electricity came from a 4-cylinder motor, gasoline motor here. If you look, you can see in the back here, instead of a transmission, it was hooked to a generator, an electrical generator. And that generator provided the electricity for the electrical motors. If you look underneath here, you can see there's skis that it's sitting on. And that's how they would move it around. They would jack up these jacks, which would lower the skis, and then they could drag it wherever they wanted to go. And once they had it in place, they would just turn the screws on that jack and just lift it off the skis, and there it would be parked. Really interesting thing is that the generator and the motor still turned over. I suppose Merlin's old school garage would have no trouble getting this fired up. But it was really interesting to see something like this, a little rusty, but actually in really good shape, sitting out here. It had this trough on it, you can see, where some of the material would come out and work its way down. I really don't know how this thing worked. I tried to fire it up here, but it was beyond starting. It looked like the motor came out of a pickup that they cannibalized and left its parts laying around here in the woods. And actually the mine was idle from 1937 to 1957, so I kind of think that conveyor was probably used by the final owner-operator of the mine, a Floyd patron who purchased the mine in 1957 and moved here with his wife Elsie in 1958. Then they operated out of this little cabin here, a placer mine, until they sold the entire operation in 1996 and moved back to Wisconsin. Anyhow, that ends our exploration of the Gold Point mine. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe. It's time for us to head home and get some birthday cake. Last one back has to do the dishes. Oh,